I need to get help with my addiction issues. I need housing. I need rehab. I need to get rehabilitated and clean.
I mean, you're gonna starve and die. There's no pity party, granddad. I miss my wife so much.
Welcome to Homeless U.S. News.
Everybody's on their own. If you got it, they expect you to give it. You just gotta keep yourself awake and alive. Close your eyes for 10 minutes. You got shit left, go home.
In the dim backstreets of America, life flickers between hope and despair. They call this place the land of the free, a land once radiant with promise, industry, and the pulse of the American dream. On Homeless Us News, we uncover these truths. In 2024, over 771,480 souls slept without shelter each night, an 18% rise from 2023, says HUD. And Shashan Reedy. But these aren't statistics. They're stories of courage, loss, and survival. This is the heartbeat of America, crying for compassion before it fades. Shocking revelation. The richest nation hides a homelessness epidemic, luxury towers shadowing encampments. Explosive fact. 23 per 10,000 endure this, fueled by 18% rent surges since 2023. Dive deeper. Is change imminent? The state of homelessness in America. When you really look around America, you start seeing what many ignore. People curled up on sidewalks, resting on bus benches, trying to stay warm with whatever they have. Homelessness isn't a distant problem anymore. It's right in front of us. And the hardest truth is that the people living it once stood exactly where we stand now. In 2024, over 770,000 Americans were homeless in one night. Behind that number are everyday stories: rent rising faster than wages, sudden job losses, medical bills that wiped out savings. Families in small towns sleeping in cars because shelters are full. People working full-time but still unable to afford a room. The system meant to protect them simply didn't. And beneath all this is a reality we rarely say out loud. No one chooses to sleep on concrete or face the constant fear of losing the little they have left. Mental health struggles go untreated. Veterans return home with invisible wounds. Seniors survive on shrinking incomes. Young people age out of foster care with no safety net. These aren't personal failures. They're signs of a society that didn't step in soon enough. Yet, even in the darkest corners, you still see resilience, people sharing food, protecting each other, holding on to hope in ways most of us never have to. Homelessness isn't just a crisis. It's a reminder of how fragile stability can be. What do you think contributes most to homelessness where you live? Rising costs, trauma, or lack of support? Share your thoughts below. And if you want more real, unfiltered stories from America's streets, make sure to subscribe to Homeless US News so these voices are never forgotten. 2. The connection between homelessness and substance abuse. When you spend time in places like Skid Row or Kensington, you start to see how homelessness and substance use become tightly connected. For many people out here, substances aren't about getting high. They're about trying to quiet the fear, trauma, and loneliness that follow them every minute of the day. When someone sleeps on concrete, carries everything they own in a backpack, and never feels safe. Even a brief moment of numbness can feel like the only break they get. Life on the streets wears people down fast. There's no privacy, no calm, no sense of protection. Judgment comes from every direction. Nights are long, cold, and unpredictable. In that kind of reality, emotional pain grows until it becomes overwhelming. And when treatment programs are full, shelters are packed, and counseling takes weeks or months to access, people turn to whatever gives them a few minutes of relief. It doesn't feel like a choice. It feels like survival. In small towns and big cities alike, the cycle often starts with loss, a job, a home, a relationship. Once someone lands on the street, isolation becomes crushing. With no support system left, substances become the one thing that shows up reliably. Shame pushes people deeper into the shadows, making it harder to ask for help even when they desperately want a way out. But beneath all of that, most people still want stability. They want safety. They want a chance to rebuild their lives. And when they finally get a room, a consistent voice, or a safe space to breathe, you can see hope return almost instantly. Substance use isn't the root problem. It's a symptom of pain that was never given a chance to heal. What do you think drives this cycle the most? The trauma inside, the environment around them, or the lack of real support? Share your thoughts below. And if you want to follow more real, unfiltered stories from America's streets, make sure to subscribe to Homeless US News so these voices are never forgotten. Root causes of homelessness. When you listen to people who've lost their homes, you realize homelessness rarely happens suddenly. It builds over time: stress, bills, rising rents, and one crisis too many. In cities like Los Angeles and New York, housing costs rise far faster than wages. Even people working full-time can't keep up. One medical emergency, one lost job, or one broken family connection can be enough to push someone onto the streets. But money isn't the only weight. Many people carry emotional wounds long before they become homeless: depression, trauma, anxiety. With therapy expensive and waitlists long, they fight those battles alone. Over time, the weight becomes too heavy to hold. Veterans face their own silent struggle. They return home, carrying memories that don't fade, yet they're met with slow systems and limited support. Many fall through cracks that should never have existed. And then there are the everyday stories: families choosing between rent and groceries, older workers losing jobs, young people aging out of foster care with no one to turn to. These aren't failures of character. They're failures of a system that doesn't catch people when they fall. Shame makes everything worse. Many people feel judged the moment they ask for help, so they stay silent until there's nowhere left to go. Yet deep down, most still want stability. When they finally receive housing, counseling, or simply someone who treats them with dignity, you can see hope return almost immediately. Homelessness isn't caused by one mistake. It's caused by a system that looks away until it's too late. What do you think pushes people into homelessness the most? Financial pressure, trauma, or lack of support? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to follow more real stories from America's streets, make sure to subscribe to Homeless US News so these voices are never forgotten. Funding investments not reaching where needed most. When you spend time with people living on the streets, you start to see a harsh truth. It's not only personal hardship trapping them, it's the systems around them failing repeatedly. In 2025, billions are allocated to fight homelessness, yet the people who need help most rarely see those resources. Funding gets stuck in offices, buried in paperwork, or lost in political arguments. And while all that happens behind closed doors, real people outside are simply trying to survive another night. In California, where over 180,000 people lack stable housing, the frustration is overwhelming. Cities request support for housing, treatment, and outreach, yet much of it arrives late or not at all. Outreach teams run out of basic supplies before noon because shipments are delayed again. Shelters turn people away on cold nights because they lack the staffing funds to stay open. These aren't statistics. These are human beings left outside wondering why help never comes. New York faces the same failures. With homelessness topping 95,000, the state depends on federal dollars for addiction and mental health programs. But only a fraction reaches the programs that actually work. The rest gets tangled in red tape, passed from one department to another like a responsibility no one wants. Meanwhile, people wait for treatment beds that don't exist, enduring fear and pain alone. Rural areas suffer even more quietly. In Oregon, small nonprofits wait 6 to 8 weeks for grants they rely on. Delays force them to cut meals, reduce outreach, or close early, leaving entire communities without support. I've seen volunteers break down because they had to say, "We don't have anything left today." The heartbreak isn't loud, it's slow, suffocating, and constant. The darkest part is the loneliness it creates. People feel forgotten, not because no one cares, but because the help meant for them gets stuck far above their heads. Every delayed dollar becomes another night on concrete. Every misdirected fund becomes another missed chance for treatment. Yet, when money truly reaches the ground, when housing expands, outreach teams are equipped, and treatment centers are staffed, lives change. People find stability. Hope returns. Why do you think funding fails to reach the people who need it most? Broken systems, bad priorities, or lack of urgency? Share your thoughts below. And if you want to keep hearing real stories from America's streets, make sure you subscribe to Homelessness News so these voices are never forgotten. Why homeless people are more likely to access and use drugs. When you sit with someone living on the streets and really listen, you begin to understand why substances pull so strongly. It's not because people want to harm themselves. It's because they're already hurting, already exhausted, already surviving in conditions most of us can't imagine. Out here, every day is a fight. Fighting the cold, fighting hunger, fighting the fear that never fully leaves. In that kind of reality, even a few minutes of emotional quiet can feel like the only relief they have left. In cities like Houston, Denver, or Portland, substances aren't hidden, they're everywhere. Dealers show up long before outreach teams do. When someone hasn't slept, when their thoughts won't stop racing, when their nerves are raw, the offer of a temporary escape becomes harder to walk away from. It doesn't feel like a choice. It feels like survival. But the deepest darkness comes from within. Some people use substances to numb memories that follow them everywhere. Childhood trauma, abusive relationships, the grief of losing someone they loved, or the shame of losing their home. Others just want one moment where their mind is quiet. And when they're alone on a sidewalk at midnight, with no support system left, that moment becomes everything. The loneliness is crushing. When family is gone, friends disappear, and society looks away, substances become the only thing that shows up. It's tragic, but painfully human. And the cost is heartbreakingly small, cheaper than food, cheaper than a place to sleep. For someone drowning in emotional and physical pain, that small cost feels like the only door still open. But most people want out. Most want help. When they get stable housing, counseling, or a safer environment, you can see the change almost immediately. Their eyes clear, their voice steadies, hope returns. The cycle isn't impossible to break. It just takes support, not judgment. Substances aren't the true cause. They're the outcome of a world that failed people long before they reached the streets. From your point of view, what pushes people deeper into this cycle? The pain they carry, the environment around them, or the lack of support? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to follow more real stories from America's forgotten streets, make sure you subscribe to Homeless US News so these voices never disappear. Government hesitant before the homeless wave. When you walk through the places where people sleep, under bridges, beside highways, behind stores, you begin to understand a painful truth. The government's response to homelessness often moves far slower than the crisis unfolding in front of us. In 2025, with more people losing their homes than any time in recent memory, what we see isn't urgency. It's hesitation. Press conferences, meetings, promises, while real people wait in the cold for solutions that never seem to arrive. In Los Angeles, where over 75,000 people lack shelter, the system feels like it's barely holding together. Shelters fill up within hours, policies change constantly, and funding gets tangled in approvals while tents multiply across sidewalks. I've watched people line up hoping for a bed, only to be turned away because space ran out. And when they do get inside, many shelters offer only a temporary stay. No long-term plan, no counseling, no real path forward. People enter with hope and leave carrying the same weight they walked in with. Philadelphia faces the same slow grind. Community groups work tirelessly with limited supplies, yet federal funding meant to support them gets delayed or lost in paperwork. During those delays, real lives fall apart. Families sleep in cars waiting for housing approvals, and outreach workers return to check on people who didn't make it through the week. These human moments rarely appear in policy reports, but they define the crisis. In smaller Texas towns, the hesitation feels even colder. Fewer shelters, fewer clinics, fewer hands offering help. Outreach teams drive miles just to hand out blankets because there's no broader support. When national attention centers on big cities, rural communities slip deeper into neglect. Behind every delayed decision is a human cost. Someone shivering outside a locked shelter, someone told to come back tomorrow, someone losing hope quietly because no one acted fast enough. These tragedies don't happen suddenly, they build slowly, night after night. If officials responded with true urgency, many of these downward spirals could be stopped. Lives could stabilize. Futures could be rebuilt. But that requires compassion and the courage to treat homelessness as the emergency it truly is. Why do you think government action moves so slowly? Lack of resources, lack of empathy, or lack of priority? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice genuinely matters. And if you want to keep following real, unfiltered stories from America's streets, make sure you subscribe to Homeless US News so these voices are never ignored. Social Security issues too weak. Spend enough time on America's streets and you start to see a painful truth. The Social Security system, meant to protect people, often feels like a thin thread that snaps the moment someone reaches for help. In 2025, with living costs rising faster than benefits, millions try to survive on payments that barely cover food, let alone shelter. In Chicago, I've met people living on under $950 a month, while the cheapest rooms start above $1,200. That gap isn't just economic. It's where fear grows and stability collapses. But the financial strain is only part of the hardship. In cities like Baltimore, many wait months, sometimes years, for disability approvals, waking each day unsure if help will come or if they'll stay stuck in the same exhausting cycle. Some cling to hope, others lose it slowly, worn down by delays, paperwork, and the sense that no one is listening. When someone already carrying trauma must fight a system built on confusion, the emotional weight becomes crushing. There's also a darker layer most people never see: how homeless individuals are treated in hospitals. I've heard stories of people turned away not because they didn't need help, but because staff assumed they were just looking for a place to rest. Some were spoken to with coldness or frustration, told things no one in pain should ever hear. A man in Los Angeles said a nurse whispered, "We can't fix your life," before sending him back outside. A woman in Detroit said she was dismissed before she could even explain her symptoms. When a hospital, the one place meant to offer safety, turns someone away, the message is devastating: you don't matter here. Veterans feel this breakdown even more sharply. Many served their country, yet face long waits for benefits and inconsistent medical care. When support fails them, the slide into homelessness comes faster and hits harder. When Social Security and healthcare collapse together, entire communities suffer. People lose homes, mental health declines, relationships fracture, and dignity fades. And by the time help finally arrives, the damage is often done. Fixing this isn't just about increasing payments. It's about faster approvals, real mental health support, compassionate hospital care, and treating people like human beings, not case files. Behind every application is someone fighting to hold their life together. Do you think our systems truly protect vulnerable people, or are we failing them long before they reach the streets? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice genuinely matters. And if you want to follow more real stories from America's forgotten communities, make sure you subscribe to Homeless US News so these voices never go unheard. Personal observations and call to action. Traveling across America, I've stood in places where hope feels thin. Street corners where people curl up against the wind. Abandoned lots where silence says more than words. And shelters overflowing with those who have nowhere else to go. In cities like Cleveland, where nearly 1,800 people are living without stable housing, you can feel the weight of exhaustion in the air. Some try to rest on cold sidewalks. Others wander through the night because the fear of losing their belongings is stronger than the need to sleep. And yet, when you speak to them, you hear stories filled with strength, humor, and dreams they haven't stopped carrying, even in the hardest moments. What breaks my heart most is how many fell into homelessness slowly, one problem after another, until they had no more room to fight. Many of them used to have homes, jobs, families, futures. They were building piece by piece. One unexpected moment can turn all of that upside down. It's a reminder that none of us are as far away from their reality as we want to believe. And for too many, the emotional pain becomes unbearable. Some turn to substances, not because they want to escape responsibility, but because they're trying to quiet the memories, the fear, or the loneliness. These are human reactions to human suffering. When you see someone struggling on the street, you're not looking at a failure. You're looking at a person who has been carrying more than any one person should ever have to bear. Can society step in earlier? Absolutely. Stable housing, mental health care, rehab, community programs, these are the tools that help people rebuild. Housing first works. Outreach teams save lives. But none of it matters unless we, as a society, care enough to demand better. On Homeless US News, we bring these realities forward because staying silent only keeps people unseen. And the truth is, awareness is a form of action. Now, I want to ask you, what do you believe is the biggest barrier stopping people from getting the help they need? Leave your thoughts below, because your perspective matters more than you think. If these stories move you, if they make you see the world a little differently, take a second to like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Homeless US News so we can keep shining a light on the people America often overlooks.